Well, on that note, welcome everybody to another episode of the Ripple Intent Podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Kyle Majchrowski, and with me, as always, is John Grant. John, please say hello to our listeners.
Hello to our listeners.
Very nice, very nice. Best way to kick us off this morning. Well, thank you all for being here. Thanks for downloading this episode. Ripple Intent is a nonprofit organization that has been around for quite a while, and we hold events through multiple cities across the country where we try to help people become better people, better teammates, and better leaders. We do that through our breakfast clubs. If there's one near you, you should attend it when you can. And we also do it through our annual symposium, which next year in 2025 will be held in Dallas, Texas at the end of February. So check us out online at rippleintent.org and register today before we fill up and your seat is gone. With us today, I'd like to introduce Kenda Salisbury. She is with us from the West Coast. So early good morning to you. Thanks for being here. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our folks?
Sure. Thank you for inviting me to be part of your podcast today. My name, as you mentioned, Kenda Salisbury. I am a regional business development director for Degenkolb Engineers. I work in the Seattle office. I have been with the company for 10 years and in the industry for 25.
Awesome.
Doing business development for about 21 of those years.
21 years of business development. For some people, they're like, that is fantastic. Others people are not responding that way at the moment.
I understand.
That's great. So just a little context in why you're here. So we kicked off our Ripple Intent organization in Seattle here not too long ago, and you were part of the core group that made that happen. Super successful, awesome core group, by the way, and really happy to have everybody on board. And we had a really good first event. So we'll be heading there again. We may have already been there when you're listening to this. So if you have, awesome. But you got engaged, you got involved. You had no idea what Ripple Intent is, but one of your colleagues does a lot of work with us and volunteers a lot of work with us. And so she was talking it up pretty good, and appreciate your support in making that happen. And so when we met and we were chatting, it just kind of dawned on me that I've been on the owner's side for as long as you've been on the BD side. And you struck me as a not BD person. And so I was like, wait a minute, you've been doing this that long, and there's just something so unique and so energetic and so pleasurable about our conversation. I was like, we gotta have it on our podcast. There's a story here. And even in talking in our preparation for this, some of the context that we were talking about around culture and people and how you have found ways to make those things important and stick for so long. We just got to get into that and start unpacking it. So, yeah, that's enough for me. That's a lot of talking.
That's your job.
That's my job.
Yes.
Isn't that your job? Isn't that what BD people are supposed to do? Is talk? No, you're shaking your head. So for those of you listening, she's shaking her head at me. No.
No, my job is to listen. My job isn't to talk.
All right, you got to explain that a little bit more.
The best way to get information from people is to prompt them with questions and just keep at it, asking leading questions. My job is to get information and to form a relationship. And people are more attracted to you as a person if you let them do most of the talking. Because there's nothing people love more than themselves.
Well, I know that's true about me, but
it's true for everyone.
So how did that come to be? Is that something that you've learned over time? Did you grow up that way? Is that how you were trained?
I would say it was something I learned early in my career. So it was something, and then I started to experiment with that in my relationships, and it started to pay dividends. So I found it to be true, that if you can make people feel special, people appreciate that.
So give me an example, because in one ways, I immediately, as usual, I go dark in my head, and I start thinking about, this sounds a little bit like manipulation, but that's not.
No, it's not. It's encouraging people to tell their stories and giving them the space to do that. And when you give people the space to share with you, you build a stronger bond of trust faster. It doesn't feel like it's a transactional relationship. It feels authentic.
And why is that important to you?
Authenticity is the most important part of my job. If I'm not willing to be myself 100%, people won't know. People will feel that I'm not giving 100%, and they won't connect with me in the same way. They will feel like I'm there to sell them something. Ultimately, yes, that is my job, to sell people things, but the relationship, my job is to strengthen and build the relationships that help win us work.
All right, you made that plural. So you say strengthen the relationships,
Mm-hmm.
because I think, and part of the uniqueness is, what I've experienced for so long in stereotyping, of course, is from a BD person's perspective or a BD position's perspective. They build that relationship with the client, and then when it's time to chase work, then it's, so here's the team. But you said relationships.
So we have been chasing a hospital here in the Seattle area for 8 years, and my job was to get in and start building the relationships. And once I opened the door, it was my responsibility to bring in our team and help our team form those relationships so that they felt comfortable answering questions and providing information to the client before the RFP even went out.
How'd you do that?
Well, I can't honestly take credit for that. There was a notice in the paper, and my boss came to me and said, "Hey, you're the only one that fits the criteria to join this committee for the hospital. Can you do it?" And so I said, "Absolutely, sure, happy to start." So I have been serving on a committee for the city of Seattle for the hospital for 8.5 years now.
I got caught when you said the paper. I'm not sure what that really
Oh,
is.
like the newspaper. They're still around, John. They're on digital now.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
Got it.
But at that time, they were still physical. We were still getting the physical paper.
So you saw an opportunity to get involved in the client's business that had, or I'm guessing it had, this committee had nothing to do with the actual work that you were trying to chase. This was just...
Wrong. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
The committee is a citizens advisory committee, and our job is
Gotcha.
to ensure, as the community, that the hospital is sticking to their master use permit, that they're actually implementing the things that they have promised the community they will implement.
Nice. Very
And
nice.
it's all about the design and construction of buildings, circulation of the campus, and making sure that they have what they need to deliver services.
I could see why I'd get involved early, but to stay with it that long and still be on it today?
Yeah, so the original plan at that time was for the hospital to run a bond. I'll just say Harborview. It's Harborview Medical Center here on the hill. And the bond was supposed to run in 2015 or 16, and they didn't get it prepped in time, so it ended up running in 2020. So it was staying involved, making sure I understood, not only voiced my opinion as a community member, but also got to understand and build relationships with the people who would be driving this process.
That makes a lot of sense, and you're still involved, which testament to both the work, the relationships. I'm sure you considered going, and they wanted to keep you a few times, and you're like, no, I got to step away, and they're like, no, you got to stay on. No, it's been that fulfilling.
Yes, it has.
That's awesome. So you're in there, you're engaging in that manner with the hospital, and then of course your firm ends up doing some work with them. How
A little bit.
Sure. Well, with any client, not just with them, but how do you transfer? Because I think that's been one of the biggest things that I've always wondered is you have this person or a team of business development folks, and you build those relationships, and you end up getting to know them, and you see them in different venues, in different areas, in different arenas and such, and then you go ahead and begin to either solicit their firm to do work, or you have them do some work. And you realize, wow, the people doing the work are very different people than the people I've built relationships with on the business development team. So how do you overcome that?
I think introducing this, we've been lucky on this one, in that it's been an 8-year ramp to get to where we are. So it was having our team members show up to these community meetings with me and starting to, introducing them, having these conversations in an organic way instead of forcing it, because forcing a relationship never works. And so allowing my team, figuring out if my team members are going to mesh with their team members, figuring out, that's, a majority of my job is figuring out if I have the right personalities that will work well with the personalities of the client.
I'm watching John, by the way, listeners, process this because you can see it.
We are lucky here in Seattle to we're a small office of Degenkolb, where there's only 22 of us here. And because of that, we aren't as siloed as some of our other offices. And so I am able to help pair our engineers with the right personalities on the client or architecture contracting side to make sure that we aren't, you aren't putting uncomplimentary personalities together because they'll just butt heads, and it won't build from there.
Can you give us an example of what that looks like? I don't know that that many people are truly doing that, right? Maybe
Right.
it's about the personnel that you have locally, right? Because everybody thinks they need to have a local engineer mostly. And so, yeah, what does that look like?
Sure. So, as an example, there's an architect here in Seattle, and one of our engineers was starting to form a relationship with this architect. The architect is a really good friend of mine, and I kept getting phone calls from the architect saying, "Your engineer's not doing this, your engineering's not doing this." And I said, "Well, have you talked to the engineer?" "Well, no, they're just supposed to know." I said, "Well, they're not psychic." And the longer it went on, they just kept beating against each other more and more. And so the next time, because my relationship with the architect was so strong, he continued to come back to us. And so I found a different one of our project managers I knew would be a better personality fit with this architect, and that it's been gangbusters. This engineer has gotten pretty much all of his work since then because that is a stronger relationship. And recognizing that focusing on the strength of the relationship is more important than the expertise in some fashion, because people trust you, they trust that you know what you're doing.
I think
Yeah.
that's a really interesting point. And by the way, I think most of us in engineering school, we forget to sign up for the psychic class. Yeah, maybe we should know it, but yeah, we
No.
forget to sign up for that class. So that's really fascinating. So you said that the relationship is more important than the technical skills.
The technical skills, I'm not as my engineers might listen to this, the technical skills are vitally important, but having the right personality fit is more important. And so we work as, I've heard a lot of firms say this, but we work as one company. And we have people who specialize in specific things throughout the company. And if that expertise is needed, they're still not going to be my PM because they don't have the relationship. My local team is going to be the PM with that expertise on the as part of the team, but not the lead of the team.
So let me ask you this. So the one that you replaced, because this can go a couple different ways. I say replaced, and that it wasn't a good fit. It clearly wasn't a good fit. And so you recognize that. The architect obviously recognized that. And so you switched people, and it was a better fit. And like you said, it's been gangbusters ever since. So fantastic. The person who was not doing well,
Mm-hmm.
was that. Uh,
It
so
was
this is
communication.
where I struggle because I've worked with tons of project managers, and they're, as much as you can standardize your policy, your processes, procedures, they're still people, and they do things different. You can give them all the same document, the same script, and the same all this and the same all that, but they're still going to enact and they're still going to do some things different because they're people and they're unique amongst themselves. Was there another client that fit better
Oh, yes.
with that particular individual?
Oh, yes. He has found his tribe, and he's found the people that he works really well with. And he has a lot of work that comes in because he has strong relationships. It just didn't work with this architect, with that person. And so it's okay for not to be everyone's best friend. You're gonna be somebody's cup of tea, and some people are gonna hate you upon meeting you, and it's okay.
Doesn't that drive the HR people crazy?
What?
What you just described, because it's like, well, those are your weaknesses, and those should be part of
No.
your 3 annual goals. You should improve that so that you're not just this group's cup of tea. You could also be this group's cup of tea. And you're saying, no.
No, I'm not gonna force a relationship because it will feel transactional. It won't feel authentic. And if I don't have an authentic feeling with a relationship and a person, I know I'm not going to give them my full self. I'm not going to be comfortable providing honest information to them, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Do you talk about this internally?
Yes.
So how is it received? Because I'm just going through, right? And we talked about it before on this podcast. We do a lot of work with Clifton Strength Finders, and we've done that. And so there's certain people where the the relationship building strengths are certainly very, very high, and then there's other people who are just looked at the as long as you technically get it all, it doesn't matter about the rest of this stuff. And then there's the people who bridge those two things and everything in between. And I'm thinking, again, I'm going to totally stereotype engineers because John's really good at it. No, we know so many of them, and we work so many that, like he was joking, the whole, and I would say the same thing from a construction management school. We had, I think, about 2 hours worth of people skills during our degree program. That was about it. So everything else we learned once we got out in the working world. We learned in the internships, and you learn once you get out in the working world. You learn from your parents, and you really hope you have some good mentors and some good managers and leaders along the way. Otherwise, you turn into the next jerk. And so a lot of it is just kind of happenstance. So part of the reason I'm poking about how do you talk about it internally is, you might see that, but then how do you push or not push? How do you reinforce to your engineers that relationships are just as important as the work that we do, or is a part of the work that we do?
It is the one thing that we focus on above all else when it comes to business development. And we do a lot of internal meetings between our teams. So Monday is meeting day around Degenkolb, and all of our market sectors, which we call practice areas, we meet every Monday. So it's company wide. So our healthcare team is probably 35 people in the project management realm. So it's all of our project managers and above. And we all get together. We talk about what we're chasing, who we're forming relationships with. If we're not getting in the front door with a firm we want to work with on a project, we will use introduction points from different parts of our company to help form those relationships. But we also really focus on the people within our organizations. So the strength of the relationship is built through, we do a lot of role playing when we're talking about, oh, you're going to contact this person. Let's talk about how are you going to get them to give you this information, and how are you going to form that relationship that you need to win the work. So we do a lot of role playing around here.
Wow. How do your engineers respond to the role playing?
We don't tell them it's role playing.
Guys, today is Dungeons and Dragons Day.
No, it's more
And
about.
you get to be.
No, that would be nice though. That's a good. I'll try that one. No, it's more about. All right, you're going to call this person. All right, how are you going to get the information you need? So how are if you want? How do I say this? So we spend a lot of time asking questions and getting them to respond to us so that they understand what we're trying to get from the client, so that they understand how to form the relationship and get to a point where they can get the information easily and it doesn't feel like it's a struggle for them. So we don't want them to feel like I have to call this person and ask them about when the RFP is coming out. Well, instead of that, engage them as a person first. So how do you engage them as a person? We focus more on that, and being their authentic selves, allowing them to be who they are, is vitally important.
Do you have to go through with people a process to understand who their authentic self is?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It's I'm lucky, I guess lucky is a way to say it. I'm very intuitive about people. I'm good at figuring out the type of person I'm dealing with fairly quickly. So thanks to my family.
What does that mean?
When I was growing up, my father is, I think, in my opinion, a narcissist of the highest order. So knowing the second I walked into a room what his mood was vitally important. And I really developed those skills as a kid that have served me very, very well in my job. Because I'm able to pick up the energy that people are giving off when I first meet them. I know if they're receptive to talking to me just by watching. And I also, early in my career, studied body language a lot. And being able to read body language, because people speak more with their body than they do with their words. So understanding how, the person from their body language has helped extensively in helping me form relations internally and externally.
It's amazing. Are you, as part of this, the coaching that you're doing, are you working to help build those skills with your engineers, or is it different?
It's different. I don't want them to be me. I want them to be themselves. So
Mm.
focusing on what makes them tick and getting them comfortable talking about themselves as people and not just the engineering, but their personal lives. Helping them come out of their shells is my job. Helping them feel comfortable with who they are is my job.
And how does that translate into the work? So if they are comfortable with themselves and they have that confidence and they have those relationships, how does that impact the work itself?
It allows them to voice their opinions about the work without being scared to do it. So I have one engineer who has come a long way in 10 years. He was timid, wasn't willing to make his own decisions. He wasn't willing to make client phone calls. He wasn't willing to put himself out there. And over the last 10 years, we've really worked at building his self-esteem so that he is now my best business development engineer, because he has really taken it upon himself not only to he's read tremendous amount of books about body language and how to persuade people, and yes, that sounds not great. It's allowed him to gain the confidence to know that he knows what he's doing. And that is where a lot of that inauthenticity comes from, is that you feel like you don't know what you're doing. And you don't want to step wrong. You don't want to be in front of the client and make an error that you can't come back from. And so by helping them build that self-esteem, they're more willing to put themselves out there and provide the information and an honest opinion to the client about their jobs.
Gosh, I only think of so many project meetings over the years where you sit there and you ask somebody from the engineering team, "Well, what do you think?" And I don't want to say what I think right now. I got to go study this. We got to look at this. We got to do some research. We'll get back to you. And it's like, no, right now, in the moment. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
Good idea, bad idea? I can't really answer that. No, come on. And it's like pulling teeth. Yeah, of course you got an opinion. Like, if this is the dumbest thing in the world, say it. We're not gonna lose any respect. In fact, we'll gain some respect. But there's this innate, and most project team members, I mean, I pick on the engineers, but most project team members in the presence of the client will often resort to that. I have to go confer with other people to figure out what the right answer is you're looking for. And it's like, that's not at all what we're looking for.
So, yeah, we work on allowing them to express their opinions without repercussion. So working with them as part of building their self-esteem, is allowing them to voice their opinions without correcting them. It's more about leading them to the answer instead of telling them the answer. And that helps build that self-esteem so that they can say, my gut answer is this. This is my opinion. It isn't fully formed. If you want more information, I'd have to talk to a couple people back at the office.
I love, and so this isn't just isolated to engineers, but anyone, like, we treat anyone who is a subject matter expert, right? You're building the confidence, and I love how you frame that. So you're building that confidence in the technical skills. And that's kind of what gives you, on the one hand, the ability to have that level of conversation and how quickly you can respond. However, I love that your focus is really building the confidence in yourself as a person to be comfortable in your own skin and let the technical skills stand separate. I can see how the two are so intimately related, and yet it's a completely different focus.
Right. We've spent a lot of there's been a lot of research released about vulnerability and people being vulnerable with each other. And I can tell you my engineers are very uncomfortable with it. But we continue to practice and push them in that direction so that they feel comfortable being open and vulnerable, not only with us, but with other people, because that is what people connect with more than anything. is that personal vulnerability. And so we are currently, one of our senior principals and myself are currently going around the company doing some empathy training. So we're training people on how to be empathetic to others.
I'll never forget a guy I worked with. He had the best line. "I'm sorry you feel that way." He's like, "That what? That's being empathetic, isn't it?"
No, no, it is not.
That's fantastic. They are lucky to have you.
It's not just me. There's 8 of us, so throughout the company. So I can't take all the credit.
Yeah, but who? Sorry, you're gonna have to take the compliment. I mean, the fact that you're going around and doing empathy training with an engineering firm is fantastic, and you set them up not for the hey, this is the latest shiny wheel. It's a continuing progression of your desire and your passion to help drive the people side into what is naturally a resistant group when it comes to interpersonal skills. And self-confidence, as John described. I mean, all the things we've talked about. So they are. I mean, your passion comes through as to why this is important, and we continue and we see success, and it's so cool when we see success, because I imagine you guys have some of the coolest celebrations when you do see success in this area.
We do. We focus, yeah. We celebrate our wins and we get together and discuss our losses and what we can learn from them.
The other thing too, Kenda, you introduced yourself as a business development director.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think a third of our conversation today was about business development. You're doing all these things that are atypical for the perception of someone in your role, which is fascinating.
I've learned a lot in 25 years in this industry, and I have watched and learned from others above me who were successful in how they approach their jobs. And the people that I am drawn to are the people that are, of course, the most authentically themselves, but also those that you can watch how they build relationships by making other people feel vitally important. And that is ultimately what I'm trying to do, is to help our engineers understand that making others feel important and heard is most of our job, and making them comfortable with the decisions that they're making, and reinforcing that these are positive changes to make in relationship building.
Do that in a sincere way. It is such a fast track to trust.
Yes, it is. 100%. And we are, we just had our company, we get all of our company together once a year, and just had that conference a couple weeks ago. And Megan Schroeder in our San Diego office, who you both know, and I presented on networking. And we really focused on, not only are we here to help the principals and project managers win work, we're here to help others form the skills they need. So at any level of the company, if you come to us and ask for help on, I'm uncomfortable with this, or I'm struggling with this, how can you help me? And we will work with those people as well. So I usually work closely with our associates and above here in Seattle. And the year before they become an associate, I will start meeting with them and working through their fears about what their fears around business development. What are they afraid of? And when you can help work through those fears and help them understand that it's not something to be afraid of, they are more successful.
Well, that's the first step going on the vulnerability piece, is admitting this is what, my fears are, and how they show up and how they manifest, and you're acknowledging that and not dismissing them, but instead embracing it, going, let's lean into this and work through it.
Right. And are you ever going to be 100% the best business development person? I don't think that exists. But you have to work to the skills that you have.
That's awesome. Well, I've got plenty of notes. And so I'm looking at them and I'm like, we could keep going, but we can't. We're out of time today. So I just want to say thank you for being here and sharing your insights and sharing what you do and who you are.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a joy. It's been a great conversation. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
John, any parting insights before we sign off?
John's like, I want to keep going.
I love this conversation. So the biggest thing to me is if more of us did what you are doing, Kenda, then we could have a huge transformation in the AEC industry, even outside the AEC industry, right? You're helping people show up as their genuine, authentic selves, warts and all. And how does it work for you? I got it. Like, my sense is people go home feeling a lot better after learning more about the way you're helping them engage with the world.
I hope so. That's my hope.
I think that's fascinating. So, listeners, you got some major insights today into.
John, you can call if you want to keep the conversation going. Like I said, I think before we hit play, I can give you all of my secrets, but you have to implement them in order for you to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah, we could share notes for sure. I love it.
That's awesome. Well, more next time. Thank you all for listening. Find us at rippleandtunt.org. Of course, we're all over LinkedIn as well. And with that, we will see you on the next podcast. Take care.